Nestle has been in Sri Lanka for over 100 years. We have been committed to enhancing the lives of the local community since the very beginning. We purchase hundreds of thousands of litres of milk from 18,000 farmers every day. Committed to increasing fresh milk production in Sri Lanka, we help local dairy farmers produce milk that meets our high-quality standards. Nestle, empowering Sri Lankan dairy farmers.
Hello there, very good evening to you. It's the 27th of September 2014. This is Primetime Weekend News. I am Sonali Wanigavadike. We start off first with a look at the stories making headlines tonight.
Chief Minister of India's Tamil Nadu state, Jayalalitha, sentenced to 4 years in jail on corruption charges. President Rajapaksa to meet Indian Prime Minister in New York today. Dr. Dayan Jayatilaka says that there is a decline of support for Sri Lanka internationally. IGP issues an order for the immediate arrest of suspects connected to acts of violence during the Uva Provincial Council polls.
Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha Jayaraam was convicted of corruption in an 18-year-old disproportionate assets case and sentenced to 4 years in prison by a court in Bangalore today. Court also imposed a fine of 1 billion Indian rupees on the Chief Minister.
A former actress, Jayalalitha Jayaraam is considered as one of India's most colourful and controversial politicians. She first became Chief Minister in 1991. The DMK filed a case against the Chief Minister citing that her assets worth 30 million Indian rupees in 1991 rose to 660 million Indian rupees in 1996 during the 5 years of her tenure as Chief Minister. She was found guilty of corruption charges in the high-profile case, which has lasted for 18 years and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Many of Jayalalitha's supporters had gathered at the vicinity of the court premises to witness the hearing of the case. After the verdict, supporters of the regional AIADMK party, which is headed by Jayalalitha, shouted slogans and burnt posters and clashed with rival groups.
It is a very significant judgment that has come today. It means the Chief Minister cannot remain as Chief Minister. She has to step down. It will have its own impact on the politics of Tamil Nadu.
It is a confirmation and a reaffirmation that everyone is equal before law. Whatever are the legal options now before Ms. Jayalalitha, that is for her and her party to decide.
A2, A3, A4,
Sasikala, Ilavarasi and Sudhakaran were also sentenced to 4 years in prison and were fined 1 billion Indian rupees. After the verdict was announced, Jayalalitha Jayaraam and the co-accused were taken to the prison. As soon as the verdict was announced, the Chief Minister fainted. Court ordered that she be directed to immediate medical attention. Based on the verdict, she will stand disqualified of being the Chief Minister and will have to step down. She will lose her seat. She can file an appeal with the Supreme Court. If she is proven innocent, she will be reinstated as the Chief Minister. If not, she will have to wait for another 6 years after coming out of prison in 4 years to contest an election.
A senior leader of India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, Subramanian Swamy, said the court verdict will generate confidence in public to fight corruption at higher levels after it convicted Chief Minister of Southern Tamil Nadu state in a disproportionate assets case.
I'm not concerned whether Jayalalitha goes to jail or not. The more important thing is that a person who has been accused by an ordinary citizen, which I was at that stage and still am, has been holding high positions as Chief Minister and so on, and several MPs of our party in Parliament. And the court has found her guilty. May have taken time, but it will generate confidence in the country that we can fight corruption. And we can fight corruption at high places. The Naxalites, anti-national elements, the pro-LTT elements, the Islamic fundamentalists, even ISIS is now there in Tamil Nadu. They all are working under the cover of ADMK. And therefore, it's a very dangerous situation. The NIA has given, the National Investigating Agency has given a very detailed report to the centre, and I have urged the centre to declare presence rule for 2 months.
22 nations have signed a joint statement against the UN's investigation into allegations of human rights violations in Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lankan Permanent Mission in Geneva in a statement said the 22 developing countries of the like-minded group in Geneva said the group, quote, believes that the intrusive mandate given to the OHCHR to carry out investigations on Sri Lanka is unwarranted, especially in the context where the country is implementing its own domestic process, unquote. The joint statement issued by the chair of the like-minded group, Egypt, reads that any external assistance to countries should expressly be in consultation with and with the consent of that country. The statement was delivered on Thursday and was signed by countries including Algeria, Bangladesh, Bolivia, China, Cuba, Ecuador, Egypt, Indonesia, Pakistan, Russia, South Sudan, Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe.
Sri Lanka's former permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, Dr. Dayan Jayatilaka, says that the joint statement issued by the like-minded group of 22 nations in fact represents a decline in support for Sri Lanka's position. He made this statement in an interview with Newsfirst Nadi Majid.
Dr. Jayatilaka, a like-minded group headed by Egypt have submitted a joint statement. 22 nations have submitted a joint statement backing Sri Lanka in its opposition to the OHCHR investigation. How do you view this statement?
Well, while I'm happy that the like-minded group has issued this statement, accompanied by 22 signatures, which include Sri Lanka, I'm deeply alarmed by what it really shows. Because of the 22 countries, and you can delete Sri Lanka, then you have got 21, only 7 are voting members of the UN Human Rights Council currently. So our vote has dropped, in effect, to 7 votes. I mean, of course, we had 29 votes 5 years ago, but even if you forget that, when we lost this March, we had 12 votes, and now in 6 months we are down to 7 votes. Sri Lanka is hemorrhaging support at the UN Human Rights Council. The second thing that's alarming are the members who have not signed this. And I'm not talking about the Western nations, but member states that should have signed this have not. For instance, Vietnam has not signed. India has not signed. Brazil has not signed. South Africa has not signed. So of the BRICS, we do not have 3. We have only 2 signatures, Russia and China. We don't have India, we don't have Brazil, and we don't have South Africa. Now that's a complete collapse of Sri Lankan diplomacy.
Dr. Jayatilaka, you say that India opposes this external inquiry, but India, at the Human Rights Council session, following the oral update of the High Commissioner, did speak out in support of Sri Lanka, questioning the methodology of this investigation. Isn't that right?
The question is, will India vote for Sri Lanka? And in March 2014, it abstained. It looks like it's going to abstain the next time too. And Vietnam, Vietnam has not signed this statement, that's really shocking. Indonesia ceases to be a member this December. So in March next year, if there's a resolution on the written report of the UN investigation, we'll be down to 6 votes. This is a complete collapse of our diplomacy in Geneva and in general.
Coming up on the news tonight, Sri Lankan Special Forces on a hostage rescue operation. Details later on in the news. Welcome back. President Mahinda Rajapaksa is scheduled to meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New York at around 10 p.m. Sri Lankan time. The President's media unit stated that the two leaders will hold discussions over a number of areas.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa and Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott met last morning in New York and held talks. The presidential media unit said that the Australian Prime Minister had commended President Rajapaksa for implementing the recommendations of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. At a cordial discussion that took place on the sidelines of the 69th United Nations General Assembly, the two leaders caught up on a range of matters of bilateral interest. The Business Council for International Understanding hosted a briefing for President Mahinda Rajapaksa last evening in New York. The briefing was held to gather international representatives that are either already investing in Sri Lanka or have an interest in exploring potential investment opportunities in the country.
Up next, let's take a look at the weather situation across the island.
The highest rainfall recorded at 8:30 this morning from Matale stood at 130 millimeters. Meanwhile, torrential rains which was experienced in several areas yesterday caused much damage to houses and property.
One woman was killed in a lightning strike during a heavy downpour in Paranagama in Manampitiya last evening. The deceased was a 61-year-old woman, Periyan Sivapakyam, and his son is receiving treatment in hospital.
She was unconscious when we brought her to hospital. They took her inside. The doctor informed me that my son can be cured, but he cannot be sure of my wife's condition.
Several houses in Anuradhapura, Salyapura and Banda Kulyangpulama areas were damaged as a result of gale force winds that accompanied a heavy downpour last evening. Transportation in the areas was also hindered as electricity cables and poles had fallen onto the road.
It
did not even last for a minute. We heard a loud noise. The trees were moving sideways. This coconut tree fell onto a house and we lost electricity. It lasted for around 3 minutes. It was like a tornado. Heavy rains was experienced in Valimada and Trincomalee. According to our correspondents, heavy rains in the central hills had also damaged cultivations.
The footage that you just witnessed was captured from Siribopura on the access road leading to the Mattala airport in Hambantota last evening. These wild pachyderms had stormed into villages early this morning and had caused destruction to cultivations.
Wild elephants that stormed into the newly developed Mahavali zone had destroyed many cultivations in lands that come under the Tissapura project. According to the locals in the area, wild elephants from the forest reserve on the left bank of the Walava River roam into the villages in search of food. The locals point out that the lack of maintenance of the electric fence stretching from Hambantota to Suryavava had led to the wild elephants to stray into the villages.
A proper fence has not been set up anywhere. Because of this, wild elephants come and cause an endless amount of damage. Because of the wild elephant menace, we cannot have a proper cultivation.
These wild elephants were spotted at several locations in Siribopura as of this evening. Meanwhile, 3 persons were hospitalized after being attacked by wild elephants at several locations in Mayangania this afternoon. Our correspondent said that the attacks took place at the 20th mile post, Wagava and Mapakadavava areas. The injured persons have been admitted to the Mayangani base hospital. The locals in the area were seen taking measures to chase away the wild elephants back to the Waskamore Forest Reserve this evening. Meanwhile, residents from Thabbowa in Putlam who have been victims of wild elephant attacks engaged in prayers today as officials have failed to provide a solution to the issue.
Still in local news, Inspector General of Police N.K. Langakun issued a directive today ordering that the suspects connected to incidents of election-related violence in the recently concluded Uva Provincial Council election be arrested and that the investigations be concluded. The IGP has ordered that the police department, including DIGs, SPs and SSPs serving in the Uva province, to take the necessary action to arrest these suspects regardless of their stature.
A statement issued by the Office of the Police Media spokesperson states that 98 complaints have been recorded during the period of the elections, with 56 complaints being recorded from Munaragala and 42 from Badulla. The statement reads further that 83 suspects have been taken into custody with regard to such incidents.
Meanwhile, demonstrations were staged in several areas in the island today in protest over the assault on Newsfirst correspondent Chandana Kurupuarachi during the clashes which erupted in the Hali Ella town on the 22nd of this month.
A demonstration organized by the Gampha District Journalists Association was staged opposite the Miriswata Pradesha Sabha in Gampha this morning.
Journalists are being attacked because they want to prevent the people from knowing the truth.
Another demonstration was staged today by the Metiyawad Journalists Association in Walava and Bilipitia.
Assaulting a journalist is a massive blow against the democratic right to information in this country. It is an act that is condemned even by the international community. All thugs who attack journalists must be punished by the law.
The Journalists Association of Mathura also staged a protest this morning in front of the Mathura main bus stand.
We would like to ask, is there media freedom in this country? Is there democracy?
Newsfirst correspondent Chandana Kurupuarachi, who was a victim of an assault, continues to receive treatment at a private hospital. Parliamentarian Sujiva Senasinghe visited the hospital today to inquire into the well-being of Chandana Kurupuarachi.
Area residents from the Gala Udahena area in Madulla, Udupu Sallava engaged in a protest this morning.
Demonstrators charged that the construction of the Udupu-Sallava Madulla main road was not done in a proper manner. Area residents from the Udupu-Sallava Mathivaran Nivasa, Alakolamada Patala, Gala Udahena, Delmar Patala and Kurupunava took part for this protest. They charged that the newly constructed road, which has been carpeted over the old road, is in a dilapidated state.
This is the new method the Road Development Authority builds roads. This is the sand and rocks utilized to build the C-grade road.
Protesters state that it has been 9 months since the renovation of this road.
This is the money of the people. Why are they taking our money and doing such acts? The new road was constructed on top of the old road, which is just a thin layer. This is not tar. It is not known even if they added black oil. They have reduced the road by 1 foot each from both sides. Up to date, not even a politician has done anything for this town, but around 10 of them come here to obtain votes and then leave.
Thereafter, the demonstrators made their way to the Udupu-Sallava town. When Newsfirst inquired into the matter from an official from the Road Development Authority in Kandy, he said that the construction was handed over to Dynamic Construction in Kandy and admitted that there were flaws in their construction. He added that the construction of this road will conclude on the 10th of next month, and if the contractors fail to complete the project on the set date, they will not be paying the contractors.
The final execution phase of the exercise Cormorant Strike 5 2014, with over 3,000 service personnel and representatives from other countries, took place in the east of the country recently. Newsfirst Zulfik Farzan, who was in the east, reports on a first-hand experience on a hostage rescue mission by the Special Forces.
commanding officer of the Special Forces of the Sri Lanka Army, is being held hostage by the Red Island forces in a Red Island camp. Sri Lankan Special Forces reached the target area in 2 Bell 212 helicopters and dropped down in close proximity to the enemy camp.
Now you can see trade troops is rushing to the target and selecting fire movement with precise engagement.
The objective, rescue their commanding officer being held hostage by the Red Island forces. Attack craft from the Sri Lankan Navy were on standby off the coast, providing cover for the special forces. Fighting between the Special Forces personnel and the enemy combatants lasted for several hours. The Special Forces broke through the defensive perimeter of the enemy and rescued their hostage.
Down!
Causing more damage to the enemy, the Sri Lankan Air Force fighter jets bombed the enemy camp. Members of the Special Forces undertook a special operation to rescue one of their comrades who was held hostage by enemy combatants. Now this is not an actual combat zone, however, this is the special exercises for commandos and special forces at Comrade Operation Strike 5 right here in the Eastern Province. Now the Special Forces battled against enemy combatants like the one killed right behind me to rescue their comrade from enemy hands. Exercise Comrade Strike 5 2014 successfully drew to a close with the final phase of the 23-day exercise taking place in Pumudai.
මේක හොඳ එක්සර්සයිස් එකක්. අපිට ආවම පස්සේ අපිට හොඳ එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එක අපි අරන් එනවා එහා පැත්ත ගිහිල්ලා දැන් හොඳට ඒක මේ කිය දෙන්න ඕන අපි.
We're back with News First. The National Hospital of Sri Lanka marks 150 years of providing premium health care to the nation. News First takes a look at the 150-year journey of this great institution that infused life to hundreds of thousands.
Dating back 150 years, the National Hospital of Sri Lanka was initially referred to by the name Petta Hospital during the tenure of Governor Henry Ward. In the past, the National Hospital of Sri Lanka, then called the General Hospital, bore witness to a great number of unfortunate incidents in history. This was the first accident ward of the National Hospital. This area is no longer used for that purpose. However, this is a location that provided emergency care to a large number of patients in the past. If you could recall the bomb blast in Colombo Fort on the 21st of January 1987, this was where the victims of the blast were brought to. A nursing officer who faced that situation spoke to News First.
I was a junior nurse in 1987. A large number of patients were brought in as a result of the fort bomb blast near the Bro Tree. If I recall right, there were around 500 patients brought.
but there wasn't enough space to keep them. Today's developed situation was not there then. I feel we didn't have a mechanism to handle sudden disasters, which made it difficult to save patients with expediency.
Dr. Joe Fernando, one of the directors of the National Hospital, reminisced about the past with News First.
I was appointed as the superintendent back then. There was no discipline. It was at a very dismal level. I told the staff to treat this as their own and to treat the patients as their own. That they come here only due to their helplessness. They looked after patients very well at that time. Back then, there was a gross shortage of doctors and nurses. Somehow, we entered into discussions with them. This was the time that doctors started marking overtime. If they worked over 6 hours, we would pay for that. We also gave this benefit to the nurses.
The National Hospital of Sri Lanka, which had its beginnings with just 100 beds and an OPD and traversed on facing a great deal of obstacles, now has the capacity to deal with any emergency situation with a comprehensive accident ward. Containing the latest equipment including MRI and CT scanning facilities, the National Hospital of Sri Lanka is ready for challenges ahead. A walk was organized this morning in line with the 150th anniversary celebrations of the hospital. A large gathering joined in, including hospital staff and doctors, ministers and MPs.
කොළඹ ජාතික රෝහල කියලා කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ගමේ භාෂාවෙන් කතා කරනවා නම් කොළඹ මහා ඉස්පිරිතාලේ අද දවසේ ගත්ත
Today, every person in this hospital, including specialist doctors, provides an excellent service. This hospital provides a premium health service second to none in the world. By now, we have received the most updated state-of-the-art equipment to the hospital. A few years ago, the President inaugurated the neurosurgery unit. Also, the third doctor's unit was opened last year. Next year, an 8-story complex with a massive outpatients department will be declared open. Thereafter, a cardiology complex will also be opened.
The National Hospital, which provided premium health care to the nation for 150 years, continues in its magnanimous venture.
A tour guidebook for the Northern Province was unveiled today in view of World Tourism Day.
The Tourism Forum was organized today by the Tourism Collective of the Northern Province and the Office of the Chief Minister of the Northern Province. The Army and the Navy not only got involved in farming but also the fishing industry. Tourism hotels and golf courses have been constructed and tourists are being invited to those places. The constructions in Kankasanturai and Karinagar are fine examples for this. Lands owned by people are reclaimed and such constructions are taking place. The people are in camps. The Northern Provincial Council is faced with a situation where it cannot create a method for the people to find a way of living. Lands owned by 6,000 of our people have been reclaimed. Courts have not intervened and looked into the intervention of the army on the people's way of living and their rights. Over 2,000 cases have been filed. We have to think about what will happen to them. We are saddened that they have thought of entering the tourism sector of the Northern Province with the intention of allowing people from the south and abroad to take away lands after 2009.
Moving on to business news tonight. Farmers arriving at the Dambulla Economic Centre charge that they do not receive a reasonable price for their big onion harvest. They point out that under the government certified price, big onions are being purchased after a selection process.
The government introduced a certified price for potatoes and big onions since the recent Yal harvesting season. Thereby, a price of 80 rupees was introduced for a kilogram of potatoes and a price of 60 rupees was introduced for a kilogram of big onions. Farmers point out that the process of purchasing big onions is not reasonable according to the introduced certified price.
They only purchase the big onions. We have to come back to the market another time to sell the small onions. However, in the Badulla district, they provided a fair price for potato farmers. The question is, why can't they do the same for the big onion farmers in Dambulla?
However, private traders purchase a kilogram of big onions for a sum of 50 rupees only.
South selects potatoes and purchases them for 60 rupees. If you take 70 potatoes and only 40 will be selected, so the remaining 30 will have to be sold for 30 rupees or 28 rupees. This is an unjust thing being done to the farmers. When onions are brought to the economic centre, the prices are low.
Newsfirst also visited big onion farms today.
We have spent over 100,000 rupees to purchase big onion seeds. We believe that 75 or 8 rupees will be a reasonable price.
Newsfirst also witnessed the manner in which farmers had stored their crops with the expectation that they will receive a fair price for their big onion harvests. The crops got wet yesterday in the rain. We have no place to store them. We have no time to even eat.
The 22nd Annual NCE Export Awards 2013, organised by the National Chamber of Exporters Sri Lanka, took place in Colombo last evening. The event was graced by the Ambassador for Sri Lanka and the Maldives of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Jürgen Mohard. The National Chamber of Exporters conducts the awards ceremony to recognise export performances of members and non-member exporters to motivate them to achieve higher goals. Awards were presented to the winners under several categories. Sirasa TV and MTV Sports were the media sponsors of the event.
Now, the gold award winner in this category, Richard Puris Natural Forms Limited.
Is it solved? Our special segment is up next.
On the 7th of this month, Newsfirst reported on the environmental damage caused in the Kottava Forest Reserve due to the negligence of the visitors who disposed garbage in the premises.
After discussions, we finally came to the decision to construct waste bins and place it in different areas. Now notice boards have also been erected.
Bus stop, which was constructed in the Vennapur town centre, collapsed on the 4th of this month. 32 million rupees was allocated for the construction of this bus stop. When Newsfirst inquired, officials stated that the bus halt will be reconstructed by the subcontractors at their expense. The construction of this project was handed over to the SB Construction Company in Maravilla by the State Engineering Corporation of Sri Lanka. The same company also undertook the construction of the Nathandia bus halt, which now stands incomplete. With these two unsuccessful projects undertaken by the company, the credibility of this organisation comes into doubt. It has been 23 days since the Vennapur bus halt collapsed. However, no measures have been taken to reconstruct the halt.
And finally, in your sports news tonight, Sri Lankan athlete Chandrika Subhashini qualified to the finals of the women's 400-metre event at the 17th Asian Games today.
The events were worked off in Incheon, South Korea today. Chandrika Subhashini won the first heat in the 400-metre women's event, clocking a time of 52.78 seconds. The finals of this event are scheduled to take place tomorrow. Sri Lankan boxer Eramde Gimhani De Silva qualified to the quarter-finals of the 51kg women's flyweight event. She faced Aikit Mark of Macau in the round of 16.
With that unanimous point win.
Dilanka Suresh qualified to the quarter-finals of the 52kg flyweight event. He faced Japan's Shota Hayashida in the round of 16 and was defeated 3-0.
And that's your news for this Saturday night. If you missed out on any of the stories we just aired, you can log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. I'm Sonali Wanigabadage, wishing you a good night.